right, listeners, you know what that theme song means. That's right. It is another episode of Senator Omer Reigns. That's right. That's the name of the talk show. Senator Omer Reigns always has such phenomenal guests from all around the world. We want you to get involved with us. Remember, we're heard on 1180 AM KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast radio station. We're also heard on AmericaMatters.us. The recorded version of this show will air Pacific Coast time at 4:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, which is, by the way, 7:30 drive time on the East Coast, and, of course, different times throughout the world. I'm talking about midnight in Australia, where a lot of people will actually call in and get involved. We're in 3 different languages right now, soon to be 5 different languages. Get involved with Senator Omer Reigns. So without further ado right now, if you want to get involved in today's show, come join us. We're at the Reno Town Mall, where you can actually get behind a microphone with any questions or comments of the guest or Senator Reigns. You can also text in to Craig Moss, our chief engineer, 775-237-2266. But if you'd like to call in and talk to the senator direct, that phone number is 844-790-TALK. Write it down and give us a call, 844-790-8255. I'm not going to waste another minute. I'm going to go directly to Senator Omer Reigns.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm Omer Reigns, as Eddie just said, broadcasting the program to the world, not only in English, but by way of translation to various other languages as well. Our guest today is going to be one of the more fascinating you've probably heard of. We, of course, encourage diverse points of view, and you may call in, as Eddie said, or text in with questions or comments. But with that in mind, I want to welcome you to Dr. John Hagelin. Welcome you, John, to this program. By way of introduction, before asking you a few questions, I want to just introduce you. Dr. John Hagelin is an internationally renowned particle physicist. He's a 3-time candidate for President of the United States on the Reform Party ticket, the Independent Party ticket, and the Natural Law Party ticket. He's the National Director of Transcendental Meditation. He's the President of Global Union of Scientists for Peace. He's the author of Manual for a Perfect Government, and much more, including frequent appearances on Nightline, Meet the Press, Larry King Live, etc., as well as one who is frequently mentioned or quoted in the Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journals, and other major media outlets. I could go on, but I don't want to do that because I want to get to John very quickly. John, how are you? We've known each other for a long time, and I so appreciate you appearing today.
It is truly my pleasure, Omer, and it is really a delight to be reunited with you after quite some time.
Yes, you know, John, we could go into so many different areas, but I'd really like to focus today primarily on the work you've done in connection with the foundations of human consciousness and how it can lead to a more unified and peaceful world, because I know you're so widely published and thought of in connection with those matters. What are the bases, the scientific bases for your conclusions? First, give us your conclusions and then how you got there.
Certainly. Well, I don't think it takes rocket scientists to realize that we are living right now in an extremely stressed time with racial tensions and numerous tensions, and problems and strife, and violence in many parts of the world, including here at home. A lot of this epidemic of stress, to quote the Surgeon General, is a symptom of the pace of our time. And unless individuals can basically get out of the grip of stress, they're going to continue to function with a brain that is gripped by stress. And a lot of us have too much of that going on. And that causes fight or flight, it causes adrenaline, it causes elevated blood pressure, it causes short-sighted, impulsive behavior, and ultimately violence if the stress is acute enough, which it is in many parts of the world today. So one of the important things we need, one, is a very simple tool or tools to alleviate the stress and allow the brain to function in a more balanced way. And one of the things I'm involved with is programs in schools all over the world, including in the United States, introducing really effective stress-reducing tools, meditation tools, transcendental meditation, etc., which have been shown in the classroom and through extensive published research to at least get rid of that obstacle so that we can function as a society using more of our potential, acting in ways that we really want to act and behave, and less gripped by stress. That's a small piece of the puzzle, but I wanted to lead with that.
What is it exactly that you do when you introduce this to the school environment?
Well, first of all, this began in the United States, but it's now taking place increasingly throughout the world, involving millions and millions of students at thousands of schools. You have to have a simple technique that a child can learn that is free of philosophical or even religious baggage, because people have their own points of view and religion and so forth, and you don't want to get in the way of that. So you have a simple technique like TM to take the mind within to quieter and quieter states of thought. And it really is as simple as that. It's a technique a child can learn. I wish we could do it over the radio, but not probably in 25 minutes. And that takes the mind and body to a state of deep rest and a settled, expanded mind. And, of course, parents are informed and agree that this would be a good thing, and then you proceed. It's really quite simple. And because of the effect on scholastic performance, graduation rates, suspension rates, violence in the school, drug and alcohol abuse, which is prevalent in many of our high schools, it just goes so far down that suddenly the demand for this program has outstripped our ability to deliver it. But it's a good news, really, because it just means people are going to enter life more in charge of their own lives with a coping tool like TM, which takes a few minutes, but then basically washes away a lot of stress and garbage you'd rather not be carrying around.
Well, John, I noticed that you mentioned social violence and crime in your opening remarks. Have you thought of taking this same type of approach into our prisons, into those incarcerated facilities throughout our land?
Interestingly, yes, and frankly, even beyond. One of the problems with the prisons, in the United States, there are too many people in them. And we have the highest percentage of our citizens in jail of any country in the world. We have a pretty strict penal code. That's half the problem. But the other half of the problem is once you get into prison, you don't get out rehabilitated. There's really nothing that stands for real rehabilitative practice in the prison. So we call it warehousing, incarceration. The word rehabilitation is rarely used anymore because it doesn't work to rehabilitate. And the problem is in the prisons, you look at the brain scan, the PET, the SPECT, the EEG, the prisons are pressure cookers of stress. And in that stressed environment, you're not going to have the type of expansive, quiet, subtle thinking that's going to allow people to really get beyond their habits or tendencies to commit crime. You introduce something like this in the prisons, and it's been done now across, again, the United States and more countries. It's done in whole countries as part of their penal system, criminal rehabilitation system. You have a marked reduction in recidivism, the rate of return to prison, and people start to, once they get out, they start to lead productive lives. So it does work in prisons, and that's one of the reasons the global union of scientists for peace across the world has been endorsing and implementing this program in so many countries. If you want to reduce crime and social violence, one way you can do it, one handle we have on it, since so many people who have committed violent crimes are in the prison system, if you can even rehabilitate those people and return them to a balanced and productive life, you've already taken a bite out of time, so to speak.
Wow. Before we go to break, my colleague Eddie Floyd has a comment or question of you.
You know, a question that I have is because Senator Omer Raines brought it up, take it to the prisons, but I want to take it even a step further than that. If and when they are released to halfway houses, when they are released to homes that try to, if you will, get them integrated back into society, I'm thinking that TM could play a major role in the reduction of recidivism. Am I correct?
That is also true. It's true for people who are still on parole, and it is starting to be used. I cite New York City, St. Louis, starting to be used as an alternative sentencing.
Okay. John, we have to go to commercial break, but we're going to come right back. Keep that thought in mind, okay?
Sounds good.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. I want to thank Jan Hermson. She's the owner of LaRue Press here in Northern Nevada. Had enough faith in me that she actually published my very first book. It's called Final Breath. It's a love story. It's a love story. It takes place on the Wynema Ranch. Why do I tell you that? Because all the proceeds of this little gift book are going to our American heritage, the wild horses and mustangs at the Wild Horse Sanctuary there at Wynema Ranch. Want to check them out? Go to wynemaranch.com. Write it down. It's WYNEMA ranch.com. wynemaranch.com. Check it out. Or if you would like additional information about the book or the ranch, give me a call, 775-384-4444.
Northern Nevada's Building and Construction Trade Council is working for a better community for all of us.
We've been partners with local contractors since 1928 to provide qualified, safe, and productive workers. Workers trained in the latest technologies and methods to perform the highest standards of quality and efficiency.
We save taxpayers money by assuring union workers and their families have medical insurance and pension benefits, so they won't need public assistance. We also work to keep unqualified contractors with their shoddy work practices from building our bridges, schools, and public buildings.
Our Building and Construction Trades Council supports good jobs in our community. Jobs with a livable wage, basic health and retirement benefits, a safe work environment, and the pride that comes from knowing we are building a better Northern Nevada.
For more information about our local Building and Construction Trades Council, go to bctnn.org. That's bctnn.org. Or call 775-355-9200.
Support the quality contractors who employ skilled union tradesmen. We build it right the first time.
Do you have a friend, a family member, or an associate who is suffering from cancer? I mean, any form of cancer. Let me tell you about some national statistics. If you have that friend, family member, or associate who has been diagnosed with stage 4 or beyond cancer, they have a 1.5% to 2% chance of living beyond 5 years unless they go to Dr. James Forsyth at Century Wellness Clinic located in Northern Nevada at 521 Hamel Lane. I'm going to give you a phone number. I want you to call them. Their number is 775-827-0707. The statistics on their ongoing study show about a 71 to 72% chance. So give them a call right now. Tell your family member, friend, or associate, 775-827-0707.
Hello, folks. Omer Raines here, again, back online with Dr. John Hagelin. John, forgive me for interrupting you, but it was necessary to take a commercial break. But I think you were in the midst of replying to the question that Eddie Floyd posed to you in connection with halfway houses and related things. Could you go ahead, please?
Yes, I was saying that, interestingly enough, it's becoming more common to offer this transcending or transcendental meditation as an alternative to incarceration for first-time offenders. It's interesting, and it makes sense, because if you can rehabilitate somebody without putting him into the penal system, from which it is traditionally difficult to basically get out and stay out, then you're really a step ahead. Save the society, of course, a huge amount of money, as incarceration is so expensive. But more importantly, traditional incarceration simply isn't very effective at preventing somebody from committing crime again. So this is something that's being tried, I must say, so far. The effectiveness of this alternative approach, giving somebody a powerful tool to restore balanced brain function, knowing that behavior is based on the brain. and restoring balanced brain functioning, restoring blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, expanding human comprehension for far-sighted thinking and action, which is our natural capability, unless we're under stress. That works better than locking somebody up and hoping somehow that person's brain is going to reform. Very exciting, new direction.
You know, John, kind of along the same line, I'm curious. We have so many of our military personnel coming back and experiencing so much difficulty in all walks of life, and especially those suffering from post-traumatic syndrome. Have you in any way done research in this area?
Well, I'm really glad you did raise that, because the sort of unspoken extra tragedy of war. War is always known to be tragic. It always involves horrendous destruction and loss of life. But the unexpected tragedy is when soldiers come home, they are, in so many cases, up to 20%, afflicted by this acute post-traumatic stress, overwhelming stress, which comes from combat to trauma. And these people, what happens is, in the brain is something called the fear center or amygdala. And when you get shocked and frightened so violently, it's like slamming on the gas pedal, and suddenly the linkage becomes broken and the gas pedal just stays on floored. Your engine is revving and you can't shut it down. Sleep doesn't do it. Medications only mask it. And these people live hypervigilant, insomnia. They perceive threats in the environment among people where threats don't exist. It's a terribly disrupted life. If you can, what's the word? If you can basically reboot the system, basically refresh, restart the brain by putting into an extremely calm state of rest, deeper than sleep, you can unstick the gas pedal, and you can basically allow the brain to stop revving and regain a state of balance. Now that's amazingly, that approach of a deep rest, a regular dose, very deep rest, deeper than sleep, through meditation, through TM, has been the most effective means so far to treat, to prevent as well as reverse post-traumatic stress. And that's why it's being used now in military training, in some of our most august military universities, Norwich College, for example, is being used in military training in at least a dozen countries to, first of all, vaccinate the troops against the ravages of war stress by making the nervous system more resilient and less susceptible to breaking under stress, and for people whose nervous system has broken under stress, allowing it to heal quickly, typically in just 4, maybe 6, at most 8 weeks of twice daily meditation for 15, 20 minutes at a time, with this kind of deep meditation, deep breath. The symptoms of PTSD are at least half alleviated, and in many subjects, symptoms are gone and medication can be received.
You know, your comments, John, are bringing up thoughts. This is kind of spontaneous, but I recall a movie that won the Academy Award, I don't know how many years ago, 7 or 8 perhaps, called Hurt Locker.
That was a tough one.
Where this fellow who's been in the military in the most dangerous position possible, deactivating bombs and things of that nature, comes back to America, as I recall, has a lovely family, wife, children, and he cannot reintegrate into our society. And he ends up going back because that had become something with which he was more comfortable. That is bizarre.
It is bizarre. And we really have to have an obligation to the veterans. We have to feel some compassion for people who've gone to give their all. They come back, in many cases, lives really destroyed. Suicide rates are extremely high among veterans. In fact, as many veterans die from suicide as in combat today. So what do? One of the things that I've tried to do, because I do oversee the teaching of Transcendental meditation across the United States, is we offer veterans opportunities to learn for free to meditate or at certainly a reduced rate. Normally when somebody learns TM, there's a small fee because there's quite a bit of time invested in learning properly. But for the veterans and for school students and for those who are of limited means, we just do what we can to bring this technique to relieve stress, to expand the mind, to develop IQ, increase creativity, learning ability, school performance, graduation, all these good things, all depend upon a properly functioning brain. We try to give that as broadly as possible. One day, I hope, all students everywhere get to learn this powerful educational tool of deep meditation transcending. And that's where I think really ultimately the government could step in, government, state government especially, has an influence on education, funds education. Make this available like any other learning tool, but this is a powerful one. It markedly improves academic performance.
John, Eddie has another question.
Yeah, I do, and I'm so impressed. You are just such a phenomenal guest, but I do want to ask you this. Do you not think, like some other countries like Denmark and Sweden have done, they've actually got into programs with PTSD ahead of time, prior to the soldier going into any form of combat? They start training them at that time. Don't you think that TM could play a major role in that category as well?
I absolutely agree, and in some respects, I think they're a bit ahead of us here. And that's why I'm really glad that Norwich University, the oldest military university in the United States, and other military training operations are starting to train against PTSD before combat.
Right.
They vaccinate the troops against it. And the one technique again that I'm familiar with that really has worked in this regard is transcendental meditation. So that's a very, very good and powerful thing. You know, I went from Stanford University. Well, of course, I got my doctorate from Harvard, but I went from Stanford University faculty to a unique place where I could study these techniques more deeply. It's called Maharishi University of Management in Iowa, mum.edu, where I could do my physics, and I started a doctoral program there, elementary particle physics and quantum mechanics, and so forth. It is very fulfilling. What's really interesting about this place, as is happening in more and more schools and colleges around the world, is this TM is part of the curriculum. It's like lab work, and students spend a little time. They do that. They come into the class. They're fresh. They're alert. They are wonderful to teach. And the other teachers here all do it so that it's really wonderful to be in this environment. And I found that an amazing experience. And I came here for a 2-year sabbatical, meaning Iowa, from California, you can imagine. Stanford's pretty nice.
Wow.
And I'm still here 33 years later. I just cannot get enough of this place. And maybe some of your listeners can visit us, or at least visit us online at mum.edu.
Well, John, I know that you worked at the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, but I also know, because I lived in Geneva for 3 years, that you were at CERN, CERN, which is the European Center for Particle Physics, which is located right on the perimeter of Geneva. And is that where you began, those facilities where you began to develop some of these ideas?
When I was at CERN is where I developed what is called a grand unified field theory, which means a theory that unites the fundamental forces of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear force, etc. That's where I did some of my deep theoretical work and came up with some of my fairly well-known scientific contributions. But what's exciting about that, I know we have no time, is that the cutting edge of science, cutting edge of physics, has been really to discover the fundamental unity of life, the unity, the absolute simplicity at the basis of all the surface complexity and diversity of the universe. And from that perspective of modern science, when the awareness goes deeply within, the mind becomes settled and simple. The awareness expands. And in that expanded state of mind, in the so-called meditative state, you are experiencing that universal unity at the basis of life. Because it's a scientific fact today that you and me and everybody listening to this show, we are all one. We're united in our source and experiencing and starting to breathe and live the unity of life is really a formula for a unified and peaceful world.
John, as I anticipated, we could talk for hours with you, but we are about out of time. I want to afford you the opportunity to provide contact information if you wish to do so, and it has to be done rather quickly. We only have 10 seconds left.
In 10 seconds, the most important is tm.org, transcendentalmeditation.org.